The vines have done the hard work. They have climbed, they have sprayed along the trellis, they have grown a lot of leaves, okay, a lot of vegetative parts, and now they're about to do the hardest job of their life, which is making flowers. So we are going to have to give them a boost, and that is what this video is all about. Yeah. In the previous episode, I was discouraging the use of any form of fertilizer, okay? I thought it could compromise the quality of the fruits, but I have realized how this fertilizer boosts productivity. And by the way, they are harmless. I've come to learn that they're actually harmless. Therefore, we are going to apply some fertilizer which will help us boost flowering. And then eventually the hopefully the vines are going to put on more sweet and quality fruits. Okay, that we are going to tackle it in depth. Okay, but for now, before, let us let's get back in time. A few months back, our main focus was vegetative growth. Okay, and during that stage we actually applied compost manure into the holes before planting the seedlings. Okay, we could have used a fertilizer, but for obvious reasons I opted, to go for organic manure since I have them in my chicken house. And the manure, it proved to be very effective. Okay, it is a good source of plant nutrients, but you should make sure that the manure is well rotted, okay, and it should cool down, should be decomposed. Otherwise, a freshly collected manure could burn your roots. There's a way they produce a lot of heat. They produce warmth whenever they're decomposing. So that's why it is advisable that you use a fully decomposed compost manure. And also, as you boost your crop's yield, you should also pay attention to the color of the leaves. The color and the quality of the leaves is an indication of what is going underneath there. Okay, for example, a pale green leaf or leaves indicate a deficiency in nitrogen, whereas a dark green and curling leaves indicate that there is too much nitrogen and you should cut back, okay, at the rate which you're giving it. The first activity when the vine started to elongate very fast was to support them. Okay, I selected a few, around 4 to 6 of the main, growing branches per plant. Then I tied them loosely. Okay, tied them loosely and guided them to along the trellis. But I was careful enough to tie them loosely because the stems, there's a way the ties cut into the stems, as the stems thicken. Therefore, it is important that you make that loose ties. Okay. Next, I also made it a habit, sorry, to remove the shoots which were growing out of the stem. Huh? Therefore, I ensured that only the main stems actually reach the top. Okay. Yeah. And then when they started branching, colonizing the trellis, I had to pinch the top of each branch so that secondary branches form. They now fully colonize the trellis, and that was also to help the neighboring plant, okay, to give it also what to regulate, okay, the diameter of growth. Yeah, that's what also I also did. Yeah. Then when they started branching, was when actually the leaves, the real biomass of the plant started, coming. So I had to unwind some of the tendrils that were clasping on others, that were grabbed onto the other vines to avoid competition. Okay, remember our goal was an open canopy where the sunlight and air could pass through, not a tangled mat of vines. No way. That would have given us the opposite of what we are trying to achieve. Because a dense canopy, first of all, it harbors pest. Then it just does not bear fruits. Okay, so whenever there is that thick formation, you're supposed to prune. You're supposed to remove some of the branches, and you only remain with a few that sunlight and air is able to what, to pass through. That is actually what is important. And I've also been removing the yellow the yellow leaves. These ones are no longer useful, so you remove them to create space for air to pass through. So since our canopy is fully established, yeah, we shall now have to figure out a way of maximizing our yield, and this is where fertilizer comes in. Okay, this is where we're going to this is in fact the this is the what should I even say, this is why we have made this video. Okay, yeah. So this is a gutted. It is a foliar fertilizer. Foliar fertilizers, in case you're not familiar with it, are absorbed through the leaves. Therefore, we are going to apply it through spraying. And this particular one is a flowering boosting type, which contains nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium oxide, and the letter Te is trace elements. There are other foliar fertilizers, okay, with varying ratio of nitrogen to phosphorus to potassium. Okay, but this gutted that we are using today, it has a higher ratio of potassium as compared to the rest of the compounds. Has a higher ratio of potassium more than nitrogen and phosphorus. Okay, why? Because potassium is in fact the fruiting factor. It is responsible for the size of the fruits, the sweetness, the strength to hold on to the stalk without falling too early. That's why we have bought this gutted with a higher what? With a higher content of potassium in it. Then the magnesium oxide, it keeps the leaves green and dark so that they can, feed the fruits. And the trace elements, and in this case it is boron and zinc, they help the flowers not to fall. So we're going to drench our passion fruit vine with gutted through spraying. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. 響く残響を聞いて降り注ぐ光の中立ち止まりはしないよさえずりは僕を呼ぶように緑色を背に飛び立つ鼓動が僕を呼び覚ます命果てるまでサバナ帰ろうサバナ一人じゃないよサバナ美しい世界をサバナさあ生み出すんだ So as we spray, we don't want to spray when it is windy or when it's going to rain, because the rain would wash away all the chemicals, okay? Or the wind would drive away chemicals to a direction that was not intended. Okay, sometimes it even causes accident. So that is it. So during flowering stage, it is when fungal disease strikes the most. Okay, a flowering passion fruits is very susceptible to disease, especially fungal diseases. Therefore, the prevention should start immediately, and this is how we are going to manage pests and diseases. One, we are going to continue with the pruning and removing of vines and the leaves from the regions that are densely packed, like I told you before. This will allow for air flow and sunlight into the vines, okay? Because the air should move through the curtain. Secondly, we shall on a regular basis slash and manage weeds, because weeds, one, they reduce when they compete. Actually, they compete with the passion fruits for nutrients, and they also harbor pests. So slashing them, getting rid of the weeds, it means that we are going to reduce on the what, the chances of pests, okay? And we shall not just slash around the stem, around the base where the stem is coming from, where the roots of the weeds, where the roots of the passion fruits are. We are actually going to just till. We're going to dig it and make sure we uproot all the weeds. That's what we're going to do. Then we shall also, in a few days time after applying this nutrient, this fertilizer, we are going to spray with a copper-based fungicide, then followed by a mancozeb, and we shall be rotating between the copper-based fungicide and the mancozeb after every 14 days to protect against brown spot and leaf blight. Yeah. Then next, passion fruits roots hate water. Okay, it does not thrive well in waterlogged soils. In fact, root rot, which is brought by water, kills them very fast. But we are lucky because we have got good soil here. Okay, yeah, so we won't have to worry so much about root rot. And lastly, we shall also be picking off the yellow and the discolored leaves to allow space for sunlight. That already I haven't told you already. And maybe we can also talk about water requirements, because passion fruits, they easily abort flowers when there is during water stress. Okay, so in a dry weather you are going to need a lot of water. In fact, you're going to need somewhere between 5 to 10 liters per plant, at least 2 to 3 times a week. Okay, you should not wait for the soil to crack for you to apply to water your passion fruits. Okay, that would be very dangerous. And it is recommended that you water early in the morning, because watering in the evening keeps the leaves wet overnight, which leads to fungal attacks. Okay, and another important aspect maybe could be mulching. Okay, you want to apply a layer of dry grass at least 10 centimeters thick, okay, around the base of each passion fruits plant. Okay, but you should make sure that the dry grass should not touch the what, should not touch the stem. That will also work. And if you have drip irrigation, it is even better if you can afford to install one. But again, in my case, I have reliable rainfall, especially at this time of the year, and it is going to rain for the next 5 to 6 months. Therefore, I am not going to need to water my field for the next 6 months until probably by November, December. There, it's when I'm going to, have to mulch and make sure that um, the base of the stem is has some moisture and a bit of water. But right now, there's no point in, trying to water my passion fruits. Okay, so as you have seen, I've slashed the field. I've weeded around the stem of the vines, to, like I told you, to avoid competition. And that was pretty much it, friends. Okay, now what I'm going to be left with is I should check it routinely. Okay, I should scout for pests, especially pests like aphids, pests like white flies, fruit flies, and red spider. Those three pests. And for fruit flies, I'm going to install the pheromone traps. Okay, two weeks from now. That one is going to be taken care of. And we cannot get the fruits without bees. Okay, even though the vines are not yet flowering right now, we are going to need the bees at some point. This is because passion fruits cannot be pollinated by wind. They require insects to pollinate them. This therefore means that we are going to have to avoid using any form of insecticide 3 weeks before flowering, from today in fact. However, there are insecticides that are friendly to bees that I'm going to have to first, inquire. But for now, I wouldn't recommend so much. In fact, I may never have to use an insecticide right now. Okay, especially at this flowering phase. Or we could also plant bees attractors. Okay, plants that attract bees, but that is not so necessary right now. Okay, because first of all, I am surrounded by gardens, and I also have a small banana plantation, so those should be enough to attract bees. Okay. And another very important yet often underlooked factor is record keeping. Okay, it is also important to keep track of whatever is happening in the farm so that you can repeat success later. One of the things that you could write down are the dates you carried out certain activities. Okay, like for instance, today's date. Okay, today that we have sprayed our passion fruits with Gatit, to boost its flowering, that we are going to write down. We could also write down when each block, reached the top of the wire. If there were many blocks, if we had scaled up, okay, if we had a big plantation and we had them into blocks, we could record which one, like their growth phases. Okay, or just any other occurrence of interest to you as a farmer. Okay, yeah, that is it, friends. That has been the video, and thank you for watching for all this time. My name is Daniel, and I do this kind of thing, and if this interests you, please subscribe and like the video. Thank you. See you in the next episode.